what I believe is what I didn't like about her was what I still didn't like about me.
That is the truth. What we see in others that we don't like is a reflection of us.
Every single relationship gives us such a powerful mirror into who we are. Welcome to Soul Sisters Get Real, the show that goes deep in who we really are and why we are really here.
We're your hosts, Caryn from the States.
And Eleni from Australia.
We've had heartfelt conversations as soul sisters for years, and we're ready to share our truths, stories, and life lessons with you.
And to inspire you to connect to your truest essence, which resides deep within your soul. There'll be tears, there'll be laughter, and there'll be no holding back.
So sit back, relax, and let's get real about the things that truly matter.
I am super excited about today's episode because it's such an important topic and it's about relationships. And I want to talk about our relationship and how we got together. But what about if that saying that we've both heard, which is people come to us for a season, a reason, or a lifetime? What about if no matter what, whether they stay for a season or a lifetime, there's always a reason? Because that's what I believe, that there's always a reason. And whether that relationship is a positive relationship that we see as positive or that we see as negative, that relationship is supposed to happen and it's supposed to be for our highest good.
I agree, because there's always growth in it with every relationship, whether it's a deep relationship or more of a surface relationship. Every relationship we learn from. Right? When we look at when people are in our lives, it's because we learned something from it.
Yeah. And I want to talk about that today. I even want to give a couple of examples of people that have come into my life that I really didn't like.
Yeah.
I didn't like being around and I didn't like their energy and what I needed to see in them that would help me with my own path. But first of all, before we talk about the relationships that, gave us the, don't want to be around that person, I like to talk about our relationship and how we perceived each other when we came into each other's lives. Because when we first met, we had no idea at that stage that we're going to be soul sisters for life, did we?
No, right? I mean, you flew in from Australia. And here I was in the middle of the United States, and I knew immediately that we had a connection. I admired you. Were you the keynote speaker that time? No, I don't think you were. You had just
the first year I wasn't the keynote speaker. The first year I was just the normal presenter. The year after I was the keynote speaker. But yeah, this is when I came into the States in 2016 in St. Louis to present at a hypnosis conference, and you were one of the participants then. And my recollection of you was this beautiful, humble person. And I instantly liked you because I felt like you really didn't play to the ego, but I did. So the ego frequency was really driving my life at that time, which I think I needed to have to get to where I was, but I didn't really understand the ego frequency and how that worked back then. I thought it was just confidence. But it's interesting that the people that I'm attracted to were the people that weren't operating at that ego frequency. So I felt like you were really humble and, not arrogant and not full of yourself, because you came to me to ask, did you come and ask for advice or did I just give it to you? I can't remember.
I don't remember at the time if I did. I probably did.
No, it's coming to me now. I think I just, I think it was the year after that I actually said, why don't you? Yeah, it was the year after.
Yes, it was the year after. And when you gave me that advice, you changed the trajectory of my life. And I tell that story often. That was a straw that I needed, like that little nugget that I needed. And I remember what you said to me was, you are teaching others how to work with athletes. You have a program that already has structure to it. Why aren't you sharing this and teaching it to other hypnotists and hypnotherapists? And I thought to myself, I don't know. Why am I not? And that was the little straw that got me started on my journey to now teach and train and have an online course as a business coach. And it was you. And I say that all the time. Like it was my friend Eleni. She like put the straw in there.
I remember that now. And it wasn't you asking me. It was me, because I used to see the opportunity in everything. I mean, that's my job back then, was to help entrepreneurs grow their business. So I used to see opportunities everywhere. And I used to see that every speaking gig you needed a call to action to the people listening so that you could grow your tribe, you could serve, make an impact. And I saw your presentation in the second year that I went to St. Louis, and you didn't have a call to action. You were sharing all this information, but there was no call to action. Like, well, what are people going to do now? How are they going to continue the journey with you if there's no call to action? And so I had to tell you, create a program which you can sell. And then you did do that. So I came into your life at that moment to give you like a valuable piece of information. And we all do that for each other all along our journeys, but we don't necessarily take it, but you took it.
And I was ready, right? I was ready and open. I was humble. And the reason is because I was new and I didn't really know what I was doing. I wasn't new as a hypnotist or hypnotherapist, but I was new to that scene, to the teaching scene, to the conference scene. And I felt like I knew nothing. And for you to come and tell me, hey, you know what you're talking about. Why aren't you teaching this? And I was open to it, and then I realized it changed the trajectory of my life and what I knew. And then where Josh came in around it, because he was this amazing athlete. And yeah. And then you and I just connected after that.
We did. Yeah. I remember I was a keynote speaker at another conference, and the only person that I felt really comfortable enough to ask this was you. I had run out of deodorant, and, I'm just catching planes and catching Ubers. I've got nowhere to go and get deodorant. And so I said to you, can you bring me some deodorant to Chicago? Boston? Was it?
No, I think it was Chicago. No, St. Louis.
It was Chicago. No, it was Chicago.
No, it was St. Louis, wasn't it? You were down in
it was when I was the keynote speaker in Chicago, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
And you
texted me. You sent me a text.
Can you please bring me deodorant? And you didn't know which one to bring, so you bought me like 4 bottles.
Well, you wanted aerosol, which is so funny because I went to Walgreens. I think I got 4 different kinds because I didn't know what kind you wanted. And of course, you only needed one because you were flying and couldn't take them. So I actually have still one of those. And I don't know why I kept it. Every time I look at it, I think of you.
Oh, that's so funny. And so that's how comfortable I felt with you, and that I could text you and say, please bring me deodorant to this conference. I've got none. I don't want to smell. And then we kept talking to each other. We kept connecting in, because I kept going to the States every single year for multiple times of the year. And we connected at every single conference. And so we would socialize as well and have good times. And then, of course, we've already talked about what really brought us together was, you also did some coaching with me as well, one-on-one coaching. So you trusted me enough to do that for a short period of time. Yeah, that's when I suggested you put your son as your background there, which is beautiful.
And that was before he passed away.
Wow.
That's when you said he is, you said, he is your symbol, amazing wrestler. Get something that shows your brand, put it behind you for Zooms. I did that. That's him winning state. And he passed away after that.
Wow. And so obviously that was supposed to happen. And none of us knew he was going to pass away. And yet we both were holding the energy of Josh, that he is so significant that you need to put him in your room and in your energy space when you're doing your work. And again, you listened and you did it. And then after that, when he passed, that's when it really ripped me to my core, because it was like, wow, this beautiful lady that I love so much, she's going through this unimaginable pain now. And I felt really helpless. And you were so like incredible with your ability to navigate through the situation. And we talked about that in the first episode. So if you've missed the first episode, please go back to that, because it's a beautiful story about how Caryn has really navigated the most difficult thing that could ever happen to any parent, which is losing their son. And then a year later, I lost my dad, and we talked about that is episode 2. And we were just connecting on FaceTime. And prior to COVID, we never connected on FaceTime because I was always visiting the States. But after COVID, and everyone's on Zoom, and we started getting used to having these online conversations, we wanted to connect because of what happened in our lives. And we loved our conversations because we would always talk about, you know, what was going on for our soul and for ourselves and our challenges. And then that's really how we decided that let's make these conversations public. And this is the origin story of Soul Sisters Get Real, which is real conversations that we would have anyway out in the public. But getting back to relationships, and you gave me the way that I work, what I believe about relationships is that it's never one way. Even when you think it's one way, it's never one way.
With the energy, right? It's the give and take of the energy, or someone's giving too much or taking too much, and the best relationships, that soul connection, which is what we feel we have, is the give and the take and the back and the forth and the exchange of energy as an equal. It's balanced.
It's balanced. And also, we don't get offended with each other. Like, just say, as an example, we agreed to meet and then one of us couldn't for whatever reason. It's like, there's just so much love and understanding. There's no, oh, no, you have to show up and you didn't show up. There's none of that, you know, codependency or expectation. You have your life, I have my life. We love getting together and connecting, but we don't expect things from another. Would you say that's true?
Oh, absolutely. I think we're both so giving and forgiving in that. And what comes up for me is that's that space of, we've both learned to not be victims in our life, right? That's part of that opening up to loving everyone that we talk about all the time, is not being a victim. You're not doing it to me as a victim, right? It's just, it is what it is. And we're not judging, and we're just in the space of, okay, then we get to renegotiate it.
Exactly. And so let's go on to the other side of the coin, because I find this the most fascinating. So I talked earlier about there are people that come into our lives, and I have this belief that every person that crosses your path, and that person might just be for a minute, like they've said something. There's a reflection there in terms of what we do with that interaction. As an example, once I was at a bottle shop, I think, a number of years ago, and I was taking a little bit of time to pay. I can't remember why, but the man behind me, he just started yelling at me and abusing me. And when I walked away from that situation, I really felt sorry for him that he's that angry. And it was a self-reflection on me saying, oh, like, I didn't take that personally. I wasn't affected by that interaction. I really saw that as, so there was this reflection on me on, wow, a year earlier, that would have really upset me. So where have I come along in the journey? So it's these little mirrors that we see everywhere all along our journey.
Yeah. And how do we spread the love when someone is like that to us? Because as you and I know now, is they are behaving like that because they're not happy, because they're miserable and they have something going on. So how do we share the love, right? It's just turning and smiling and saying, have a great day. And on that piece, I did want to mention is there have been people in my life that aren't just quick at the grocery store or the bottle shop, which I totally laugh because I don't know what a bottle shop is. But
what do you call a place where you sell alcohol?
Oh, a liquor store.
Okay.
I was just imagining maybe that is a bottle shop. So I was intuitive.
I love
right?
it. It's another thing I love about our conversations is these little words Like the other day when I said to Siri, hey Siri, turn the torch off, and you laughed your head off because you went like, how is there a torch in your phone?
And
And
I never heard that.
you call it a flashlight, we call it a torch. How funny.
Yes, I know, it's totally funny. And then sometimes people are in your life and they continue to show up in your life, whether it's, so here's an example of someone that I was on a trip with, and it was a group trip, a group tour. And then it just was something, it's karma, right? Just something did not resonate with me. And I work really hard at being non-judgmental. So it's not about judging someone. Like, I don't like them because I don't like how they look, or I don't like whatever. It's just the energy you feel, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, ooh, like there's some karma there. And I don't know, obviously it came from another life or another time. And you feel the energy, and then they show up in your life again for whatever reason. And then you see them somewhere else for another reason. And it's working through that and just realizing that, you know what, they are also a loving soul. And if they aren't resonating with me, it's probably from some kind of karma. And that's my job. Like you said, that's my learning. That's my lesson. What is coming up for me and why? And how do I get to be open and loving, even though I'm feeling the energy?
Yeah. And it is challenging, but it's one of those muscles that the more that we use that muscle, the more we can do it. That's what I believe. At the beginning, it felt really difficult to send love to someone that really just like, oh, just something about that person, I just don't like being around them. Yeah. But the more we send love to the people that we find the most difficulty sending love to, the more our heart opens, the easier it is to do that. I have an example too, where I had a colleague, and something about her, it just irked me, just her presence, being around her. And now that I reflect back on that, what I believe is what I didn't like about her was what I still didn't like about me.
That is the truth. What we see in others that we don't like is a reflection of us.
Yeah. So she had this thing where she would always talk about how great she was and what a great therapist she was. And when I reflect back to that time, I also had this belief that I was a better therapist than everybody else. And so when I look back at that time, she was displaying what I had in me, what my ego was telling me. My ego was telling me, you're better than everybody else when it comes to therapy. Like, you know, the only way.
Yeah. So whatever the trigger is, right? If someone triggers us, we're like, why is that a trigger for me? Oh, yeah, maybe there's that mirroring.
Exactly. And back then, the way that I ended up dealing with that was because I didn't like her energy, was blocking her, because I just didn't want to see her posts on Facebook anymore. I didn't want to be around her because it just made me feel, yuck. But now, the way that I see things now, because that's where I was then, is like, in order for me not to be in that energy, I needed to just block that energy. I believe we don't block, because that's our greatest fast track to evolution, is allow these people to come into our lives. And if we are really learning and evolving, we won't be triggered. But if we are triggered, that's the greatest gift of all, to find out, well, what's still inside me that I'm still so bothered by this person. And so
love it.
Don't block. Grow, let's grow with the experience.
Accept it, breathe it in. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
So the other thing I realized, I'm taking this emotional intelligence course, and actually I'm training right now. I was coaching it. And what I realized and what came up for me is, even though I work really, really hard at being non-judgmental, we as humans, our ego minds are judgmental. I don't care who you are, unless maybe you're Jesus or Gandhi or Buddha. And I even think they probably struggled with it because they had the human ego. And it's typical for us to immediately judge. And the important part is that we step back away from it and we say, there's no judgment here. Like, we don't get to judge. We're not the ones to judge. But it does come up, right? And then you have to step away from it and be like, no, I love these people. I love I love who they are. And how do I see them in a really loving way? Because it always happens, right? It just sometimes it's working through it where it's not as long as being a judgmental with everyone.
Yeah,
person.
it always happens because it's part of the human ego, and it's part of this whole belief in separation, that I am separate to you and I need to protect my identity, and I need to know where my identity fits in the social hierarchy. So I'm either less than or better than someone else, because we're in a hierarchy. That's what the ego believes. But we know that that's not the case. But also, I think it's important that when we see ourselves judging, that we actually be okay with the fact that we did, in the sense that don't judge ourselves for judging. Because then that's the spiritual ego. The spiritual ego comes in through the back door and will always use spirituality to have a once up and say, you see, you're still judging. Don't judge. That's not very enlightened of you.
And on top of that, what I realize is people that judge others, more the judgmental, they're very judgmental about themselves.
Totally.
So it's an inner
Totally.
right?
Totally.
They don't feel good enough. Yeah.
When I used to see weight loss clients, and I had, a lot of very large women, they were the ones that were the most judgmental about body image. And how can that person wear, those clothes when you can clearly see they shouldn't be wearing them, Totally. But the real superpower is in seeing the judgment, because the first stage is we're unconscious to it. We're judging. We don't know we're judging. We just think it's the truth. But the next stage is, hey, I'm judging. And therefore, when you see that you're actually judging that person, is to be aware of it. When you are aware of it, it's going to dissolve. Yeah. But without judging yourself for judging.
Right. Yeah.
Don't judge yourself. Say, I'm human. I do have a human ego. And in that moment, isn't that funny how I judge that person when I know we're all the same? When I know we all come from the same God spark, when I know that that person's soul and my soul is all connected into the universe, but I still judged.
Right. And so it's being aware of those people that do like kind of trigger you, or that you have in your life, or you see at the grocery store that feels, you feel that energy, right? And then it's about not judging and loving, and realize that they're there for a reason, and you get to learn something from it.
And even with relationships, with people who are in relationships, say with a narcissist, and it's like, I heard this conversation recently. He made me feel really bad about myself. Well, he can't make you feel bad about yourself, no matter how he treated you, because you felt that about yourself in order to allow another human to treat you that way. So this person has given you a gift, because now maybe you're going to consider self-worth.
Right. And no one has the control over you. No one has the power to make you feel any way. Like no one is that powerful to make you ever feel any way at all.
Yeah. And that's why, exactly, Caryn. And that's why on Insta, there's a lot of posts about narcissism, about these are the red flags and these are the green flags. They really irk me, those posts, because all these people are playing a beautiful role. They play a role. I know that it's impossible for any narcissist to come into my life and have any relationship with me, because I don't allow that kind of energy. So if you allow that kind of energy, there needs to be self-reflection. Well, why do you think that you deserve to be treated like that? And so if that person has come into your life, it's an opportunity to really do some self-reflection and think, okay, what do I really believe is my worth?
Yeah, absolutely. And that is part of that self-actualization, because depending on personality styles and whether you're a giver or a supporter, or, depending on that, for some people, it's hard to choose themselves. And that is about knowing your worth and choosing yourself, and choosing not to tolerate behaviors or the way others treat you if it's that type of, person. So yeah,
exactly.
it is about just knowing who you are and knowing your worth. And if you don't, like, go do what you need to do to, like, figure it out and love yourself.
Yeah. But in the meantime, every single relationship gives us such a powerful mirror into who we are. And even with my son, before he had his girlfriend, he's a very logical person. And he asked me, Mum, what are the benefits of having a girlfriend? Like, do I really need one?
I remember that.
Yeah. And one of the reasons that I gave him was that it's the best way to learn about yourself is to be in a relationship. Because what better way?
Yeah, because it triggers you and it stretches you. And that's the only way we grow, right?
Yeah.
Is to be triggered and stretched by other people. If your life is just easy and whatever, we don't grow.
How do we know who we are unless there is a relationship? This is the reason why Source, God, created this magical experience on earth, because God could not experience itself without having a different expression of itself. And so that's how this whole earth experiment started.
Right.
And so relationships is where the power is to really, really, really work out who we are.
Yeah. Even when we think about past relationships, like ex-husbands and, deep relationships, I was married for 28 years. When I look back on it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I am a different person because I learned so much. Like, thank you for making me who I am today.
Totally. That reminds me of yesterday, I was speaking to somebody about my upcoming book and that I'm writing. And my book really is in 3 sections. And those 3 sections are represented by the 3 men in my life. So my first husband, my second husband, and the third part being Christian, were a reflection of where I was at that time.
Yeah, who you are through it, right? And who you became through it. I love that. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
We get to talk more about that. We get to talk more about our books too in one of these episodes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is such a fun conversation and so important to talk about relationships and how every single relationship, whether we feel like it's negative or we feel like it's positive, it's all working for us.
All for us and all for a reason.
Thanks for watching. We hope you loved it.
And if you did, please like this video and subscribe to the channel.
And remember, always connect to your truest essence.
And choose love. We'll see you next time.